Getting ready for game number 3 between Andrew Jessup and Ross Merriam. Jessup just did win game number 2. So Ross Merriam will be on the play here for game number 3. Probably not much changes. And that game was actually pretty simplistic, right? Where if Ross is able to kill the Graph Digger's cage, life is pretty good. He did have a grudge. He dredged by Nature's Claim, but Jessup had a Spell Pierce, and that was that.
Exactly. What might change here is just if Jessup is willing to have the pierces in his sideboard. It's a lot different on the play where, you might be able to tag Ross's Faithless Looting on the first turn, or it's more likely that you can counter a grudge and it's actually significant. On the draw, that's less likely. And the thing is that he's got 3 copies of Galvanic Blast and a Welding Jar, which are not great in this matchup, though maybe Jar's a little bit better post-board if Ross has his Artifact Destruction. So he's got 4 easy ways, or 4 slots that are easy to cut. 3 certainly with the on the 3 Galvanic Blasts. So maybe you just have the 2 Graph Digger's Cages and the 2 Pierces. Even if they get worse on the draw, probably better on the balance than a Galvanic Blast. And it's a good answer to Conflicate too.
Sure.
Even if the game goes on for a long time.
Sure. Well, both these players are going to take a look at their openers. Ross does not look thrilled with what he's looking at. Don't have a great idea of it. And Andrew Jessup, well, he doesn't show much emotion at the table, so you'll never know if his hand is good or bad, or if he's happy or sad, as Merriam's going to go down to 6. Jessup is happy enough. He'll keep, so we'll learn a little bit more about him. Andrew J., youngster from the New York area. Older brother Danny in top 8 contention. They're both 9-3 right now. Danny actually went 8-0 in Standard, 1-3 in the first portion of Modern. Andrew, pretty close to the same. As his brother Danny also plays Magic, but Andrew is a self-proclaimed best player in the house. Played baseball as a competitive outlet until injury turned to Magic. He's a hip-hop fanatic and a pretty good drummer. He's a 21-year-old with 10 open top 8s and 2 wins at 21 years of age.
And I think also a story with Danny. Danny was telling me that he was looking at lacrosse scholarships.
Oh, really?
When he
before injury?
Before injury, yeah. So both Jessup brothers, I think, were pretty successful high school athletes until they were injuries derailed their careers and turned to Magic. And not an uncommon story of a lot of people who were athletes and then because of injury or just kind of reaching their competitive ceiling, turned to Magic as for that outlet.
You got to get some competitiveness in.
Not necessarily.
I got to have it.
Yeah, no, that's for sure for some people. I know a lot of people who live lives absence of competitive outlets who are totally happy.
How? How?
I don't know.
What's better than winning? Nothing. Nothing.
Being over yourself enough that your happiness in life is not tied to dominating other human beings.
What I don't know, I don't understand what you just said.
No, I know you.
I don't understand
it's okay.
what you just said. It's nonsense. Ancient Grudge is going to take care of the Graph Digger's Cage. 2 Ornithopters, the spire of industry there for Andrew Jessup. Andrew has a drum. A couple Edge Champions over there too, but Ornithopters, well, they're 0 power creatures. They won't be attacking. Let's go back over to Ross. Ross mulliganed. Ross found a grudge, one of the best cards ever against Affinity, and he was able to take care of the cage, and now he's operating, ideally, quite well. Merriam with an Arid Mesa. Grudge the drum. Gonna get that mana.
Yeah, and Ross sequencing like this out of respect for Spell Pierce.
Yeah, I like it. Jessup's gonna float some mana, and Ross just says, your turn. Jessup will draw. Picked up a Blink Moth Nexus, has a Cranial Plating in hand. How do you feel about killing the drum there? A lot of good permanents you can kill in Affinity that are artifacts. Taking care of a drum? Try to get you?
Jessup missed the land drop, I don't know.
It's risky business. Because you take a look at Jessup's hand now. Cranial Plating still Overseer, 2 Edge Champions. Champions, of course, going to be very difficult to kill with an Ancient Grudge, but Seal Overseer, that one might be worth killing as Merriam is going to sacrifice Arid Mesa very quickly.
I think the line also gets a little bit more attractive if he has another Grudge or Nature's Claim. Or Dark Blast, just any of his stuff that is a proxy for Artifact Destruction.
Dark Blast would be a real nice one right now to take care of that Seal Overseer and get that Dredge Engine online, no doubt about it. He's already untapped. His hand doesn't look that potent right now, does Ross?
Also, if Ross's hand is a little bit soft, he might feel like, I just need time. There's not any one particular card I'm worried about. It's just a function of Jessup overwhelming me. And if you slow down his mana, you know, if you went turn 1 Ornithopter and turn 2 Drum, don't do anything else, no land drop. If you blow up his mana, maybe he just can't do anything at all.
Stinkweed Imp, going to be hard to cast.
Stinky.
Yeah, that's getting stinky in here indeed. There's a Signal Pest. That's the draw there for Jessup. Most importantly here for Andrew, his Steel Overseer is alive and well. So these artifact creatures are going to get a little bit bigger, at least this turn, potentially more turns down the road.
And Ross not doing anything with his graveyard. Jessup, no interest in trading off with the Stinkweed Imp because that allows Merriam to start dredging. So especially with Steel Overseer, I expect Jessup to sort of just hang back for a little bit and get this going while Ross is not doing anything.
Jessup going to play a Signal Pest. He'll activate Blinkmoth Nexus with itself. And now Overseer is going to put some +1/+1 counters on the entire squadron as we head back over to Ross Merriam, who's drawn, I believe, a prized Amalgam. Actually, it was a copy of Conflagrate, which has just gotten worse.
Well, if he has an untapped land here, he can at least take care of the Steel Overseer.
There's single red. There you go. Now, let's load him up and take care of Steel Overseer. So Conflagrate does its job. The first one for 0. The flashback red, discard 2 cards, take care of Steel Overseer. So
and get a Stinkweed Imp in the graveyard.
Yep, so
now he's got the
doing
ball
okay.
rolling.
He's doing okay now. That was a good draw. Not as good as it could have been because of the Steel Overseer activation, but still totally fine.
Yep. And now more of an argument here for Jessup to attack because he can't cut Merriam off of dredging. He has the Stinkweed Imp in the graveyard.
So you just kind of want it out of the way now?
Well,
if you can.
But not necessarily out of the way, but before I think it was smart of Jessup not to try to trade off. Now it's a little bit different because you can't stop Merriam from dredging anyway. And you had to start attacking at some point. You can also just like set up your shop a little bit more. You don't have to do anything this turn necessarily.
Cranial Plating's here. I'm going to pass that turn back. Let's go over to Ross. Dredge 5. Amalgam. Thug. A couple lands and a Nature's Claim will go to the graveyard here for Ross. No Narcomoebas yet, but Amalgam's not bad. Follow-up. Stinky. His Stomping Ground enters the battlefield tap. Bloodghast will come back, and now so will Amalgam. So now the Dredge deck is starting to get online here, folks. Slowly but surely, Merriam is getting the ball rolling as we head back over to Jessup. Jessup with the Darksteel Citadel. And now there's an Edge Champion.
Really bad news for Merriam.
Yep.
I think he was hoping to at least be able to play defense for a little while, get himself set up, but Edge Champion, he can't block, and with that Cranial Plating, this could be over, you know, window of 2 turns maybe.
So now if you're Ross, you got to dredge into another Ancient Grudge, ideally. The biggest problem here is that Cranial Plating that's on the battlefield. Maybe take a draw step. Who knows? But this is bad news here for Ross and really good news here for Andrew Jessup. Looks like Merriam's going to dredge 4 via Golgari Thug. It's a Narcomoeba, a Conflagrate, a Blackleaf Cliffs, and a Mountain.
Yeah, those aren't bad hits, but again, as you mentioned, it's really about finding the remaining Ancient Grudge at this point to break up the Cranial Plating and at least slow this down a little bit.
One question, of course, is does Ross Merriam have that copy of Knot of the Bone?
Also an option.
Yeah. And how many creatures is he working with in the graveyard?
Yeah, that's the issue. I think the Knot of the Bone, even if you found it, even if it's in the deck, isn't worth a whole lot right now. In fact, I think it may be worth 0.
It's not worth much. I think it might. I think you might actually be right. It might just be full-blown 0.
And if Merriam doesn't have a dredger in the graveyard, he might have to do something like Conflagrate away the Signal Pest just to get the Thug back in and try again next turn. So he's in trouble.
Well, he's going to start attacking. Here comes Price Amalgam and Bloodghast. There's a block there.
Yeah, Jessup's got to be wondering, you know, what's your hand like here that you would make this attack? Because on the surface, I have a free block with the Edge Champion, and the Ornithopter gets to swallow the Bloodghast for free. So do you have enough shatters to take me off of Metalcraft, or is there something else going on here? Because of the Conflagrate, I guess it's reasonable to talk yourself into. He's just looking to put a point on whatever.
He's going to discard a Thug. Here comes Conflagrate. Yeah, just to clean up the Ornithopter. That's exactly what that turn was. Anything else here from Merriam? He discarded the Golgari Thug to dredge next turn.
And that looked pretty mopey, but at the end of the day, Merriam's hand is forced here. He has to get the Dredger back in the graveyard. His only path to do that is Conflagrate, so that's the best he can do.
Yep. For that turn, at least. That's for sure. Here's Springleaf Drum. Next up for Andrew Jessup. A Vault Scourge. And now Edge Champion is going to wear a hat.
And Jessup would ideally like to sequence this in such a way that he's presenting lethal the following turn. Which I think is not. I think he has. One, so 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, he can do it across 2 turns, assuming Merriam has nothing.
Well, here comes Edge Champion. Looks like an attack for 9 here. And looks like he's going to use Signal Pest in combination with Springleaf Drum to turn on Blinkmoth Nexus to make an attack for 10.
And next turn is 9.
Yeah.
So
Ross would have to have one heck of a turn to get himself out of this hole.
well, if he dredges into Grudge, he has a lot of time potentially. Because Jessup's entire clock is this cranial plating. The S Champion on its own isn't too concerning.
Let's go back over to Ross. He'll untap. He's going to dredge 4. Ancient Grudge is the card he's kind of got to find right now. Life from the Loam. Faithless Looting. Gemstone Mine. Copperline Gorge.
And the looting gives him another look at it.
Yep.
Or several looks, assuming he has dredgers down there.
Well, we know he's got at least a Loam, so he'll start there. Stinkweed Imp. Dark Blast. Cathartic Reunion. Now he'll dredge the Imp. 5 more. Faithless Looting. Lightning Axe. Cathartic Reunion. Conflagrate. Those are all red cards, not the ones he's looking for. There's Golgari Thug. He'll need to discard 2 cards now, Will Merriam.
I think Ross is now beat.
I believe you are correct. There goes Thug and an Imp. Prize Amalgam's got some interest in getting in the red zone here.
And this is an easy no block. Just
happy to take it.
Yep.
And Jessup says, I will take it. I'm down to 15. Totally fine with me. Scalding Tarn is the land. Life from the Loam is the last card in hand. Andrew Jessup's going to win this match here over Ross Merriam. 2-1. Affinity is going to take care of Dredge. And for Andrew Jessup, he moves on to 10-3. Ross Merriam slides down to 9-4, which means the player on the left, number 6 on our SCG Tour leaderboard, still in top 8 contention.
Well, third